Too many leaders lead for validation, not impact, for what they can get out of it more than what they can give to it. Hi, my name is Chris, and I'm obsessed with how leaders grow and develop, and I too have insecure moments. We all do. Glad you're here with me now on the Sight Shift podcast so you can learn how to lead for impact, not validation.
Well, hey, everybody, I am Mark. He's Chris. Welcome back to the Sight Shift podcast. So good, as always, to have you along with us. And we are right in the middle of a series where we are talking about this book, our latest book, Lead for Impact. And if you've been following along live, you'll realize that it's been a minute since we've recorded one of these. I had some schedule shifts. It created some conflict, but now we're back in the routine, picking up at episode 7. And today, to get into this episode, we're going to go to the movies.
Oh,
I know you like the movies.
I do, as long as it's a movie that is weird and idiosyncratic.
Well, I chose ones that I would know, so so that rules out all of those. But we're gonna go to the movies for a couple of ways to demonstrate what we're gonna get into in this episode. So if you were to think about, I'll just give you two. There's so many, but I'll just give you two that I could be familiar with. Probably most of our viewers, listeners are familiar with. If you could describe the similarities between Emperor Palpatine in Return of the Jedi and the Joker, as we could pick a few different options, but in the Dark Knight version, which I know you're a fan of that trilogy, what do you see those characters, those villains, having in common?
Yeah, I mean, there's different ways people describe it, but the psychopathic or sociopathic behavior that allows them to be committed to, and truly, I wasn't like queued up for this. This is like real time. I didn't know what he was going to do.
I know you like this.
They are more about what they can tear down than build up. And it's that lack of, what is normal functioning awareness or behavior for people that they can't access. They want to watch the world burn, as Michael Caine talks about.
Would it be reasonable to conclude that both of those characters, both of those villains, demonstrated empathy?
Yeah, they didn't. They couldn't. They lacked it, whether it was nature, nurture, sociopathic, psychopathic behavior. But yeah, it's why we hear those horror stories. I hate to bring up something so negative, like somebody hurts an animal and come to find out the behavior was very problematic and repetitive from their past, and then they're this evil monster in society now.
And yet these villains, and we're just having fun with some movie characters, these villains were able to tap into the emotion of others and use it for their own manipulative gain. To tear down.
Yeah,
right?
I see where you're headed.
Yeah, I see where I'm headed.
Yeah.
Connecting some dots
That's
here.
awesome. That's awesome. That's exactly it. I mean, that's the thing that we think, that they're emotionally cut off. They're emotionally so unaware. They just don't have the capacity for it. But it's actually, they have a greater capacity in a way.
One of the things that you say in this chapter 7, I believe, certainly our 7th episode, is that empathy, let me see if I can get the quote right here. Empathy is for the psychotic.
Yeah.
Now, I have a sense for what that means, but that could be a fairly jarring statement for some. So unpack that for a minute. And what do you mean by that? And how are you really defining psychotic here?
Yeah. Raise your hand if you've ever been deceived by a leader. Okay. So I have been, and I can look back at it now and see, I just ignored some of the spidey sense, right, that you get in those moments where you're like, what's going on here? So I can look back and see where I ignored some spidey sense moments. But if I deconstructed why I was able to be deceived, it's this. That leader knew something about my insecurities that I wanted validated.
Mm.
And whether they consciously knew that or not, like a honing signal, they locked in on validating something in me. So then I'm interacting with them, not for impact, but for my own validation. And hook set, zzz, I'm along for the deception now. And so the empathy is for the psychotic. It's just this idea for psychotic leaders to manipulate people. It takes two parties. On the other end, it takes someone who is able to have something about themselves validated. So that's why powerful manipulative leaders can spotlight people and make them feel amazing, and they get a euphoric high from being seen and loved and known and heard, or some promises, some carrot thing that's out in their future, and they don't realize how they're playing into this. And that sets up why it's so destructive, where we've just, put a terrible ending point. But I won't get to that yet.
Yeah. Well, that's where we're headed, right? We've been replaying that theme over and over. Good starting point, terrible ending point. Empathy is a good starting point.
Yeah.
It's a valuable skill to have. It can also be manipulative if it's all about self-validation or using others to accomplish what you want, rather than moving toward impact, which is the whole point of the book, leading for impact, and deconstructing some of these current popular concepts as initial good ideas, but don't stop there. Go further.
Yeah, well, because, and I may have shared this in an earlier episode, but it's huge. Raise your hand if you've been through a situation where you were personally suffering and you needed help from others to get through that moment. And it just sucks, because we say to people, like, I feel sympathy for you. That's, oh, you can't buy groceries. I feel bad for you. Empathy. I feel bad with you. And what we've said is empathy is the end all be all. No.
Not we, but in current
Thank you.
modern thinking,
Thank you.
That's where it stops.
Yeah. And it's such an immature, malformed, poorly thought through endpoint, because if that's the endpoint, we're not actually doing the work of leadership, which is solving problems and ending the suffering of others. So I don't want your sympathy when I can't buy groceries. I don't want your empathy. I feel bad with you. I know what that feels like. I've been there. I want your mercy. I need you to Venmo me money. And the people that have changed my life in very hardcore suffering moments might be mentoring relationships that help me get mindset upgrades, but it's also people that were like, I got you. They got my back. And they know I'm doing my best, whatever people's decision-making matrix frameworks are on, do I help this person or not? Anybody can be in a situation where people take advantage. But yeah, I was in a place I was gutting it out, trying to improve, and people saw that. And so the way that I think about it now is I can have sympathy for a lot of people. I can have empathy for some. I can have mercy for a few. I can actually end the suffering of others. And what we've created is, imagine this, the leader's office at the end of the hall. You go down to the end of the hall and you bring a problem to them. And the problem, that you complain about, whatever that is, needs to be solved. And they go, I've been there, Mark. I know what that feels like. And that really stinks. And even as I hear about it, it makes me sad to hear it. And thank you. Thank you for sharing with me, so I know your concerns. And you leave the meeting and you buy into the idea that empathy is the end game. And you go, not that you would actively do it this way, Chris is awesome. I feel seen. I feel heard. I feel known. He's so empathetic. He identified with me emotionally, but I didn't do anything about it.
Yeah. Meanwhile, on the inside, I'm having to disbelieve what my instincts are telling me. but okay, but like, are you willing to help? Are you willing to give me the hand up, or clear some of the way, or run some interference, whatever it is? I'm like, that's it.
Yeah. That's all we get from this. Now, again, I understand in the leadership conversation, you could over-rescue people.
Sure, of course.
But in the context of what we're talking about here, when empathy is the end game, I've fulfilled my leadership responsibility. I've empathized with you. And you go, oh, they're so empathetic. And what I'm saying to you is, people that know how to play the empathy game card, whatever, are typically psychotic leaders
Mm-hmm.
because they know how to validate what needs to be validated so they can manipulate you, keep you bought in longer, keep you sacrificing your values longer, keeping you compromising your values longer. And then you look up one day and you're like, how did I become a willing party to this? Because they were good
Mm.
at validating something
Mm.
and you had something that you needed validated.
Yeah. I'm playing out two different M words that we've used in my mind. The first one is manipulate, which is in this context, maybe not exclusively, but in this context, the leader is trying to get somebody else to do something that the leader wants. Manipulate. The other word, which I think would be beneficial to unpack a little bit, define a little bit, is mercy. And there's a role reversal there, where in that act of mercy, the leader is taking the action, the beneficial action, rather than in the act of manipulation, it's the other person that's taking the act. Anyway, playing those two things out, say a little bit more about mercy and how we think about it here, because I know we've gotten some questions as we're talking about this and in the context of others.
Well, it's a weird word to use, and I get that. It has a lot of religious connotation for people. If it's used at all, it's got baggage with it. And the reason I don't mind using it is because, again, I want you to think about it like empathy isn't the end. There's something to follow empathy. Now, we've given you in the other episodes the exceptions to this. There are times I just need to honor my wife's feelings or my daughter's feelings, and they don't really want me to solve the problem.
Of course.
You're smart enough to get that. Beyond that, though, it's like, when we don't really define the end very well, let's think about this morning in our one-to-one where I was like about to fire off an email to the whole team. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to let your leadership shape that. And I could have fired it off, and you could come to me and go, Chris, based on our org chart, what the organization expects, you just sent this out. This doesn't really follow how we're structured. And I could empathetically, I could just be sympathetic. Oh, that must have sucked. Sorry. I could be empathetic. I've been in that spot before in your role in the org chart, and I've had that happen. I've had the end runarounds that are actually even done intentionally. And go, man, I feel empathy with you on that. And I've been through that. That must have sucked. And you're like, but Chris, your behavior, right? So the mistake that a lot of people would make hearing this is a leader has to solve and end all the suffering of others. No, you're never going to grow a team. You're never going to develop people. You're never going to go as far as you can with your mission. This isn't about you being the bottleneck for all decision making. It's just about the end point isn't empathy, but mercy. I end the suffering of others. I don't create worse suffering through my insecurities, and I bring my energy and will to bear to solve the things that need to be solved.
Yeah.
So, real-time example.
Yeah, that emotional.
That could have happened.
Yeah, it could have.
No, it was queued up.
But that's present. It's today.
Yeah.
It's an example of how it went further than just.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Sorry.
Good luck with that. How many times have we heard that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So many times.
Yeah. So many times. So many times. So just to repeat, the sympathy for many, empathy for some, mercy for a few, and the whole idea is don't just stop with that emotional resonance. Take it to action. Yeah. What's yours to do, then do it. Yeah.
Right on.
We've talked about, just staying with that lane for a second, we've talked about the broken formula. It's probably worth bringing that up again. This idea that mindfulness equals the combination of empathy plus psychological safety, which we'll get to in the next episode. That's the broken formula. The formula that we're espousing here as a better formula is the idea that right motive plus right action equals impact. There's a I think it'd be fun for you just to talk for a minute on like the ancient wisdom
Yeah.
version of this formula, since we've been teasing out the idea of mercy.
Yeah, I'd love to. And so think about it in your head. You just picture mindfulness equals empathy plus psychological safety. That's the broken formula. Impact equals right action plus right motive. That's the lead for impact formula.
Yep.
What this formula undoes at its deepest level is this: where do I have a victim mindset?
Mm.
Right? Everyone without awareness is constructing the view of reality that they want to believe in so their insecurities are comforted. I don't want to actually feel the painful doubts about who I am. I want to keep myself convinced of the story I want to believe in. And those are the ways that everybody else is the problem, not me.
Mm.
So a victim mindset. To transform that, when you're leading for impact, not validation, what roots out the mindset rot is to say this: not do I have mindfulness? Oh, I'm overwhelmed. I have suffering. I need to separate from my thoughts, ideas, and emotions and create some self-care. Great. You're not done. You get what you need so that you can re-engage and have impact from a mindset upgrade.
Mm.
How does that happen? Because I withdrew and I didn't feel swept up in the experience and overreactive, I get the higher mindset. Now I go into the right action plus the right motive. I'm effective. And it's not like, our nervous systems haven't even evolved for electricity, right? If electricity didn't exist and I'm a fan and I want it and I love HVAC, you'd go to bed at an amazing time every night and you'd wake up. And so we stay up too late and we wake up exhausted and blah, 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 blah. I look for things that stick around for thousands of years. Of the top 5 psychological studies that have had the most press for business and leadership, 3 of them have been debunked. I don't care what's stuck for thousands of years. Now, I'm all about innovation. We use AI in our organization a ton.
Yep.
But what has stuck around for thousands of years? The ancient formula for impact. Justice equals, and this is powerful, mercy plus humility. So most people think about justice as righting the wrongs. That's an elementary definition that's a starting point. But justice understood holistically is actually the balance of values.
Mm.
It's not just the righting of wrongs. It's, I'm not just getting out of this environment what I value. What do we need? Now, that's a big idea. We'll stop there because I could keep going.
That is always the case. But the whole point is, what's been around continues to be around.
Yeah.
And when you can lock into the foundation of that wisdom, what you find is that humility, that motive,
Yep.
and mercy, the action, the empathic connection that leads you to move on behalf of somebody else,
Yeah.
is what ultimately gets you to that impact or that justice.
Bingo.
We're not just pulling this out of the fad leadership thin air, I guess,
Yeah.
is another way to say it.
Yeah. I mean, we all, if we're honest, if we're coming at this from a place of health and growth, we want to be in an atmosphere, an environment, or a culture that is full of justice.
Mm.
It feels amazing to see needs get met, people get taken care of. How do you get there? You got to have right action and right motive. Mercy plus, it's not for me. I'm not here to get what I need to get out of it. I'm here to give. And if you get a group of people who know how to take the right action with the right motives, you get a collective sense then of justice. And it's rare that people would sacrifice their insecurities and their egoic needs, but it does happen. And when it happens, that's an atmosphere that's very powerful.
Yep.
Very rare, but very powerful.
Yep. So let's move this towards some practical application.
Yeah.
In the people that we work with on a regular basis, I'm observing 3 different actions that people can take coming out of this, depending on where they are in their relation to emotion in particular. So I'll start there, and then you can expand. The first is to acknowledge that emotion plays a role and begin to move move more toward that, creating that empathy connection, so that you're not just the the robot, the machine, the performance, the achievement addict. That you're actually somebody that can see and acknowledge the emotion of others, and begin to exercise that. On the flip side, there is the person that is too dominated by the emotion, and only stays in the emotion and never sees the next step to take there. And then maybe the more advanced application, what we're saying is, don't let empathy be the end. What can empathy then move you toward, in terms of taking action? I guess I should let me roll it back. So I'll organize my thoughts a little bit better. The first one is not acknowledge moving to acknowledge emotion plays a role. The second is stop manipulating others with the emotional, psychotic type of manipulation. The third would be actually allowing this to move you towards some action on behalf of others. Expand, take it even deeper.
Yeah, I mean, and this is going to set up a little bit of the psychological safety, which we have not
next episode.
Yeah. So, you know, it's the idea that, like, I have to honor my feelings, but not be dominated by them. I have to honor the feelings of others and not let them dominate whatever the experience is. And what's happening for most leaders, and they don't realize this, is the most exceptional leaders are typically very good at compartmentalizing. And so they're shutting down emotions in themselves. Over time, under stress, they start shutting down the emotions of others, trying to deny them. And then the people that have maybe a lot of success, where they get a lot of yes people around them, then over time they become very dominated by their emotion. And then we just don't want to upset them. Average general people, general population, they tend to be dominated by whatever emotion they're feeling. So you just picture it like a spectrum. Am I dominated or denying? And what we're wanting to do is look at emotions as clues and signals. They're bringing awareness. So if I'm not aware of this, here's what happens. The end of the day, you had a rough leadership team meeting, and you're like, oh, how is everybody doing? Think about how it can prompt your consciousness. Oh, I should text everybody, tell them how much I appreciate them. That could be the right action, but the wrong motive. I'm trying to just get a reminder that they like me and they think I'm doing a good job, or that we're going to be okay and we're going to find a way. It might be that I need to just affirm the moment. Hey, today was a rough conversation. I appreciate the vulnerability everybody brought. Let's keep building on the ideas we had, and we'll find the best ideas over time will come about, and we'll work hard to execute them, right? Whatever. There's a million things. What most people don't realize is their consciousness is pinged by the emotion, and now it's a clue and a signal. What action do I need to take, and what's my motive? And what most leaders are doing is cut off from them. They don't even remember they have feelings till Saturday, right? It's a funny thing, but one of the things I've had commented on a ton for a leader that has achieved and succeeded a lot by numbing out is just to go on a walk and feel your toes. Like, that's a starting point. It's not advanced, but it's a great starting point. For me, it's hearing birds. I can go outside and hear the birds. And if I'm not hearing the birds, I'm too in my head. So therefore, I'm not aware and learning from the clues and signals.
Got it.
Yeah. And then I'm going to miss the action. Or I'm going to distort the motive. Over and over and over again.
Mindset of humility. A motive that is about impact versus validation. An action that has moved you to take out of the understanding of your own emotion and matching the resonance, the emotion of the others. It's going to lead you toward impact at the end of the day.
And I think for anybody watching this, it's like, you know, I feel overwhelmed with tons of opportunity or tons of challenge. What should I do next? One foot in front of the other. What's the next right action to take? Do it from a motive of I'm impacting, not trying to get validated.
Yep.
That's momentum.
Yep. So empathy is for the psychotic.
Ooh.
That's the controversial statement that we're making in this episode. Next time we'll get into psychological safety, and we'll complete the three things that represent good starting point, terrible ending point, and be one episode closer to getting our way through Lead for Impact. Any last thoughts? If someone were to come away with one specific thought or something that you want to make sure we state, what would it be?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just don't overcomplicate it. What do you need to go do right now? And don't do it for your own comfort validation. Do it to serve others. Keep going.
All right. I'm Mark. He's Chris. The podcast is Sight Shift. Lead for Impact is the book that we're going through. We'll be back again next time with the next episode.
Thanks for joining me on this episode. There's always more for you at Sight Shift, SIGHT, shift.com, to be the leader you were meant to be.